Namaste, everyone. Thank you for being here. Oh, we survived the lunar eclipse and the full moon. Although the energy carries on, so you know. They say the energy carries on for actually a few months afterwards. But it was pretty heavy, pretty intense energetically leading up to it. At least I felt that way. I wasn't getting good sleep. I was being triggered. I was getting insecure. I was feeling all these emotions coming up from nowhere. And it finally started lightening up over the weekend. So what we're going to talk about today is something that kind of goes along with what we've been working with actually the last number of weeks. We worked with the kleshas, which are the mental afflictions that are the root cause of suffering. This is talked about in the book of the Yoga Sutras in the 2nd chapter. We took a week with each one of those categories. And then last week, we talked about the lunar eclipse coming, and we focused on the vagus nerve and how when we're really busy, when our schedules are overloaded, when we're inundated in fear, when we're feeling anxiety, we're in that sympathetic nervous system where we can go into fight, flight, or freeze, and how yoga and meditation and mindfulness helps to shift us into the parasympathetic nervous system where we can rest and digest, where we can have a calm response versus an emotional reaction. And we were talking about a healthy vagal tone allows us to fluctuate between the two, right? So I know some of us were emotional last week, but we didn't stay in that, right? We were kind of moving back and forth. And that's what we want. We want the flexibility of that. Today, I wanted to talk about something that showed up over the weekend and how it can also apply to what we've been discussing. I've been wanting to reread a book that I read like 20 years ago, and it's by a man named Eckhart Tolle. He's a spiritual teacher, he's a motivational speaker, he's written books, The Power of Now, A New Earth, and I'm sure he's maybe written more books since then. I just haven't read any more or looked for any more. And what I'm going to talk about today comes from a book, The New Earth, or A New Earth. It showed up over the weekend when I was finishing my Reiki Master training. It took us 12 weeks to go through this training. We met every other week, and we had homework in between the times that we would meet, because in the process of learning more about this type of energy work and practicing on each other and getting attuned to be able to do it, it starts to shift you and change you internally. And so there's some things that can happen. You could have a physical purge, you can have an emotional purge. There's different things that we kind of go through with it. And so we were meeting every other week to basically kind of hold the space for each other as we were doing some of our own healing in the process, and also becoming more open intuitively through the process. And so we graduated on Saturday. There had been two groups, a group that was meeting on Sunday and a group that was meeting on Friday. We were all on the same group text thread, and some of us had to, if we couldn't make a Friday, we'd show up on a Sunday, or if they couldn't make it to a Sunday, they would pop in on a Friday. So we slowly got to know each other, through this, even though we were meeting at separate times. And when we all collectively came together on Saturday with the full moon, right, in its glory the night before, which can amplify emotions, it was very evident that had happened with a lot of people. In fact, one person was really late showing up to our graduation, and she came in and we asked her how she was, and she just broke down and started to bawl. And when we continued our conversation going around the circle, things that we had been through, things that we had noticed with our own growth, and patterns that we had been picking up on, it was very evident and very clear that there was a pattern that was happening with some of the women. 6 of the women were married. 4 of them were having the same issue coming up. This was taking time away from their spouses and their families to dedicate themselves to this training. And then on top of the training, you're doing your own healing work, so things are coming up. And you're also becoming more intuitive, so things are coming up. And when that is happening, you're actually going to be standing more in your power. And their spouses were really feeling threatened by this. And were poking and pushing their buttons and trying to trigger like a major argument, a major fight, or even divorce, threatening divorce. And so it was a pattern with all of these women, and they all could relate to each other on what was going on. And I was so pleased with one of the women who noticed that she said, I've been married for, I can't remember, it was like 13, 15 years. And she says, it's always the same. He comes home from work, he cracks open a beer, he sits in front of the TV, and then he wants to start a fight. He's just mean, he's mean to me and the kids. And she said, so I always feel sorry for him, and I always want to try and stay around, and I want to create peace in the home. So I start loving on him and try to get affectionate and try to please him in all the ways that I can to get him in a better mood. And she said, it dawned on me through this training that I'm part of the pattern. He's doing that to get the reward. Do you see what I'm saying? To get the attention and to get the affection. So she stopped it. He'd come home, he'd crack open a beer, he'd turn on the TV, he'd start to get mean, she'd leave the room. She'd go play with the kids. She would go read a book. She wouldn't play the game. Because she wouldn't play the game, and this was a cycle they had created, guess what? He changed. One day, he comes home. She didn't see him on the couch. She found him in the basement, reading a book. And he was nice to her. And it happened again. And it happened again. And the third day, he said, you know, notice something. We're not fighting like we were. And you haven't been giving me like the attention that I was getting before. And so she just sat down and was like, this is what I've noticed. This was the pattern you were in. And so I'm not going to play my part in it. And that created a shift. Unfortunately, it didn't last. Right? He went right back into it. But the good news is, if he shifted once, he could probably shift again. And she's giving him that space and room for his own personal growth and for his own personal realization to realize the part he's playing in it. And maybe they can work through it. So what we're going to talk about today is what's called the pain body. And he talks about this very clearly in his book, The New Earth. He says, all of us have a pain body. And it's negative emotions that have been imprinted into us from our past. And he talks very clearly about how this can play out in relationships and with the people you live with and with the people you love the most, because they know how to push your button. They know how to trigger you. They know how to get the response they're looking for. I noticed this with my high school sweetheart. It was about every 8 weeks, we would have a blow up. It was like clockwork. And I realized it was related to the full moon. And that time I was a flight attendant. So once I discovered that, I would look for the full moon and I'd be like, I'm gonna fly. I'm not gonna be home. I'm gonna exit out. And it worked, it helped. It really helped. It solved the issue because it was coming up with the moon. It may not be the moon phase for you. It might be a subject matter. But whatever it is, it's usually a place that causes discomfort or unease or unhappiness. And if someone is not feeling the most joyful, that's when they're going to start to poke. So what Eckhart Tolle says is, in order to, break away from the cycle or be aware of the cycle, first notice when the emotion comes, and instead of just running and reacting with the emotion, sit with it, be with it, and recognize that's just your pain body. That's just the ego rearing its ugly head. And if we can contain it and hold space for it and realize it, then we won't allow the mind to chase after the emotion. And if the mind isn't chasing after the emotion, we can break free from the emotion and break free from the cycle of the pattern. It's not easy, definitely not easy. But I think this ties so beautifully in with yoga and meditation, because the yoga and the meditation piece is supposed to bring that live awareness in. And that's what he says, be present with it, be aware of it, recognize it, see it for what it is, and then understand that we don't have to respond to it. We can be present with it, but we can move through it, or we can let it go. Does that make sense? He explains it better than I did. I'm trying to give you the Cliff Notes. Great book if you want to read it, or ask somebody to give it to you for Christmas. All right, where are we starting today? We are starting in Pigeon. And I know not everybody works well with Pigeon. If you wanted to put we're going to start with the left leg. If you wanted to put a block up underneath your hip, you may not do that. You may need deer pose, which is more like this. So you're not getting that deep stretch in the pelvic floor. You may be a person that prefers this eye of the needle, where you're on your back with the left ankle crossed over the knee. And you can choose to have the right foot down or hugging in. So pick one of those poses. Whatever style you want to express. And remember, you can also have a bolster to lay on in front of you. You can rest in prayer hands or lower to the brow. So we normally center first before entering the pose. But the hips are where we tend to push down a lot of unprocessed emotion. And since that's part of the pain body, I wanted to get right into it. And I want you to focus on centering now with your breath while you're in the feeling of the sensation. When the pain body gets triggered, we usually feel an internal contraction. We typically feel resistance. And sometimes entering a pose, we can feel resistance to the pose, especially if this is where our issues are. We often say the issues are in the tissues because life shows up in the body. And our relationship ties tend to show up here in the body, in the hips, in the second chakra. So turn your attention to your breath. Breathe with depth and control. And you can take an equal measured breath, where the length of the inhale and exhale are about the same. However, in forward folds and in these more passive poses, I would recommend a longer exhalation. poses help to bring some synovial fluid back into the joints. I know sometimes the joints can feel stiff or achy. So let this bring some pliability to this area of your body. And let the pose and your breath help to wash away some of the things that may be pent up here. Give it an exit point. Give yourself some relief. If you are on your back, go ahead and uncross the ankle, roll to one side of your body and come to tabletop position with your hands slightly forward of your shoulders. And then the rest of us in pigeon or deer, we're going to start to rise up. We're going to let the palms press down, and then we'll all curl the toes under and step into downward facing dog. And from holding your downward facing dog, press into the hands and the feet, shine up through your seat, let your head hang between the arms, and feel the tingling effect. It's the energy we've opened up from the left hip. You may even feel it draining down into the calf and heel. And if you're going to go into deer or pigeon, you can bring your right leg forward just behind your hands. And if you're going to come down to your back, lower to your knees to table, slowly come back down to your back, crossing the right ankle over the left knee. Feel free to utilize props. Feel free to be solo. This is gentle, so you can make it as gentle or as restorative as you prefer. I would suggest closing the eyes, checking in with the facial muscles. Loosening and relaxing the facial muscles in the jaw. Surrendering your weight down, letting go of any contraction in the muscles. The muscles can also stay relaxed in this stretch. Feeding more circulation to this right side. Since our relationships are correspondent to this area of the body, it is really interesting whenever you're having difficulty or grievances with a female in your life, how it tends to show up on the left side. And if it's with a male, it tends to show up on the right side. So maybe while you're here, stay contemplative, keep checking in, see if that rings true for you. If you are dealing with this in life. Maybe more or less tight here. Be present with what is showing up. the sensation. Go deeper. If it increases, feel free to back away. Inhale, if you're on your back, go ahead and set the right foot down. Roll to one side, come to table. The rest of us coming up from pigeon or deer pose. Let your hands be shoulder distance apart. Curl the back toes under. We'll step into downward facing dog again. And from being in downward facing dog, I'm actually going to bring the affirmation in for pigeon. I rise above the past and the future to this eternal moment of now. That affirmation goes perfectly with what Eckhart Tolle is suggesting when we experience the pain body. One more deep breath. Now exhale, land down to your knees. Fold back into extended child's pose. If your forehead doesn't tap the floor, you can always cross the arms to provide a headrest or use a prop. Affirming here as you hold a release now from all outer involvements into my own inner haven of peace. The key here is noticing when we're taking out of that state of yoga, out of that realm of peace, and then seeing if we can apply some of the tools, some of the techniques to bring it back. And something that we always have available is our breath. On your next inhale, rock up to hands and knees. Make sure your hands are just slightly beyond your shoulders. We're tucking and lifting again to downward facing dog. This time in the Adho Mukha Svanasana, look at your feet. Make sure there's just a few inches in between the big toes. And we're going to lift the right leg up. Lift it halfway up and notice how your shoulders may want to rock forward towards your hands. So apply more pressure through the hands and then lengthen through your arms all the way into that right heel. Good, now inhale, point the toes, lift the legs skyward a little bit more. See how the right hip starts to tilt open. Bend the top knee without turning your hips, without turning your shoulders. Keep your shoulders level, a form of downward scorpion. And then gently bring the right foot down. Now inhale, lift your left leg halfway up. When you lift it halfway up, power into the palm, so you're shooting up and back. Good, now point the left toe, scissor the leg, feel the left hip twisting open, and bend that top knee without turning through the shoulders, still looking towards the backside of your mat. Form of downward scorpion, and then lower the left foot down. Good, now walk the feet forward towards the top of the neck. Feel free to have a generous bend in the knees as you lower into Uttanasana. But if you're having a bend in your knees, take your sits bones and jut them slightly skyward, just to feel more extension in your hamstrings. Let your shoulders relax off your back, let your head nod or get heavy. Firm here. Nothing and no one on this earth can hold me down or back. Not even my pain body. Well, on your next inhalation, bend your knees. Take your arms forward and up to fierce pose. Chair pose. Exhale, bring hands to prayer position at your heart. Good. Land your toes, shift your weight forward towards them. And then inhale, sweep the arms out and up, elongate your side body. And then exhale, bring hands down to heart center. Good, doing that one more time. Inhale, sweep the arms up. Exhale, bring the hands down. Good, inhale, slowly straighten out your legs. Inhale, take the arms out and up again. Exhale, this time swan dive down to your Uttanasana, your standing forward fold. On your next inhale, you're going to step your right foot back. Now feel free to bring the blocks in on either side of that front foot. So we're going to be in the lunge. Stacking that front knee over the ankle, plucking your back thigh up in the air. And then slowly floating the hands away from the blocks. They're there if you need them. To build the trunk up over the pelvis. Good, now take the arms up. Lengthen through both side strips of the body. And then exhale, bring the left hand down to rest on the waist. Good, inhale, lift your right fingertips, maybe arch it back. Don't have to go back far, it doesn't have to be dramatic. Exhale, bring the right hand down. Good, lower the back knee to the floor, untuck the back toes. Keep shifting your weight down through your hips and through the pelvic floor. And Sarah, you can step your left foot forward just a little bit more. There you go. Yeah. Cool. So we're trying to open up the psoas muscle, get a nice release there because it is embedded with emotion too. A lot of they're saying now that the psoas goes back to the fight, flight, freeze of the sympathetic nervous system. And that's what we're trying to be less associated with. Bring your block in your left hand beside your left hip. Keep the hips sinking down and extend your right arm up again, similar to what we did in the higher form of lunge. So the side that's sinking here is the arm that's lifting up. Good, one more deep breath. And now curve to your left. Inhale, bring it up. Take the arm in front of you and take it across your chest. Gaze off to the left. Inhale, come back to center. Release the right hand. Now push down through the blocks so you can slowly back the left knee up because that's deep, okay? Send the blocks forward again. We got two sides. Hands down to the ground, curl the toes, launch back into downward facing dog. So in downward facing a dog, again, feel free to close your eyes to really get a good sense of the sensation in the aftermath of the pose. Feel it disperse. Feel that tingly, lighter sensation. And let it be absorbed. And when you're ready, walking the feet forward again towards the top of the mat. You can arch up upon arrival and then fold directly back in towards your legs. Uttanasana. Perhaps the legs can get a little straighter this time. Don't force it though. When you're ready, bend the knees. Inhale, let your arms elevate. Chair, Utkatasana. And then exhale, bring your hands to prayer position in the heart. Good. Inhale, let your arms lift. Exhale, hands to prayer. You can even sit deeper if you want. I'm just not wanting to do that today, but you can't. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, hands to prayer. Good. Now inhale, slowly straighten your legs. Inhale, come to Urdhva Hastasana. Arms reach up to frame the face. Exhale, swan dive down to your Uttanasana, your standing forward fold. This time we're going to step the left foot back. When we step the left foot back, feel free to bring in those blocks for stability. Getting the shin perpendicular to the floor, plucking the back thigh up towards the sky. And then really weigh down the feet so the hands can float up and you can rise to crescents. Once you stack the head of the shoulders are over the pelvis, lift the arms. Balance. Chin parallel to the ground, eyes steady, gazing at one place. Then the right hand lowers to the waist. Inhale, radiate the left arm higher, maybe striking a little bit of a back bend. You don't have to go terribly far. But feel the work. And then exhale, let's bring the hand safely to the blocks. And then bring the knee back down to the floor. Untap the back toes. How we doing? Because this is deep work. All right, bring your, well, let's just like rest here for a moment. Sinking the hips, pelvic floor towards the floor. Right hand back. Align it beside your hip. The left arm reaches up. And you may not have to arch back. This is my angry psoas over here. I don't feel like arching back on this side. This is enough. But if you have that mobility, if you have it in your wheelhouse today, go for it. Reerect the spine if you arch back, and then you're going to curve over to the right. Bring it back up, take the arm across the chest, and gaze towards that hand or beyond. Good. Bring this arm back, lower it down to the blocks. Push the hands into the blocks so you can casually back the hips up. Good. Have your blocks on the lowest height, your hands on top, shoulder distance apart. Your head's going to hover here, so don't try to release it all the way to the ground. A little different variation of child's pose. Now externally rotate the upper arms. And feel the work in the outer shoulders when you create that action. Feel the space that you just cultivated between the shoulder blades. And take one more deep breath. Affirming here our prayers for all of mankind to live in harmony and in peace. Imagine if everybody could understand and recognize and be aware of their pain bodies instead of spewing out on everyone else. Inhale, rock up, two hands. All right, we're going to move the blocks to the sides. Ground the hands again. Curl the toes under and launch into downward facing dog. Now look back at the space between your toes, have it about 4 inches apart. And when you're ready, you're lifting your right leg halfway up, just like we did earlier. Keep the hips even with each other. Push into your hands more, create more extension through the spine. And now fly the right leg a little higher. Now bend the top knee and maybe twist through the shoulders so that you're looking up underneath the right arm. This is another variation of that downward scorpion. We've been in scorpion energy. It's been intense, but we're going to be moving out of it soon. Now unroll, lower the right foot. Let's take it to the left.
Inhale, the left leg's gonna lift halfway. Push into the palms, lengthen long for your arms, back, left leg. Good, scissor it higher, pointing the toes this time, bending the knee, taking downward scorpion, maybe angling the shoulders and looking up underneath the left arm. Good, exhale, unwind, lower the left foot, come down to the knees, and you're gonna drop onto forearms to take the weight off your wrist. All right, so the knees are stacked below the hips, the shoulders are stacked over the elbows. Notice how we all have a tendency to kind of collapse here. And go ahead and get into it. Let your belly just spill. But start to root your elbows, lengthen up through the neck, and gaze up and down. Now you're getting more sensation coming in as the full back bend. All right, as you exhale, drop the tailbone, zip up through the midriff, arc high through the shoulder blades, let your head go, back stretch. Inhale to cow tilt. Exhale to cat stretch. Good, continue. Inhale to cow, take your time. Exhale, cat stretch on the forearms. So in blissful flow, we did a lot more, sensation type of activity, but we were mixing in some of the same poses we've already been doing. And then we built up for forearm stand and the full scorpion pose. We're not doing that in gentle. So the next time you come into that cow tilt, draw in through the lower and upper half of your abdomen. And instead of arcing through the shoulder blades, just keep your head halfway up, look down between the arms, step the feet back, take forearm plank. This is going to be our big strengthening feet pose today. See if you can hold it at least 3 breaths. And on that final out breath, you can let go, lowering your thighs and around the pelvis, keeping the head and the heart open in space. Your legs shoot back, your toes point back. You're firming up your buttocks. Retracting the belly if that assists or helps your low back. Exhale. We're going to lower towards the brow. Lower towards the brow. The hands are going to slide back and be set beside your thighs, palms facing downward. We're just going to do one more strengthening exercise, and then we're going to relax. As you inhale, lift your right leg, head, shoulders, chest. Exhale, lower the right leg and the brow back to the floor. Inhale, head, chest, left leg lifts. Exhale, descend. Inhale, right leg, head, chest. Good. Exhale, descend. Inhale, left leg, head, and chest. Good. Exhale, release. We're going to do just one more to each side. Now return the hands underneath the shoulders. Push up and back. And we take our mats to wall. So I don't mind if you come up right beside me, but if you may be in the front of the video, just so you know. If you're further out, you won't be. I just want you to have that heads up. So, did anybody have disruption of sleep? Yes, okay, so we're gonna do like with the wall. However, I want us to do waterfall pose first. And waterfall at the wall is different than the way we do it with the block. You know, sometimes we put the block under us for bridge, and then we just lift the feet. Okay, it's a little different with the bolster. So this is what we're gonna do. If you watch me first, I'll demonstrate it. You come to lie down on one side of your mat and body, and then you roll back. This is how we get into legs up the wall. If that's too much for you, you can shimmy back to create more space. If you're too far back, you can shimmy forward. But to go to waterfall with the bolster, you're gonna have it close to you. You push the feet into the wall to elevate the hips up. And you want to come up so high that you feel that bolster kind of coming to your mid-back, because you want your sits bones to hang off the front side so that you're getting all the circulation to come abundantly into the belly without it being cut off. And then your arms can either be draped to the side. Some people like to rest hands on the belly. So the bolster is not touching the wall. You may be, but the bolster is not. And you use your feet to push into the wall to elevate your hips and back up in order to slide the bolster underneath. And then you just sit back upon it and straighten your legs up. Betsy, bring your legs slightly left. Right there. You were just a little crooked. How is it feeling? Nice, right? Does anybody need help? And if you feel like you don't have enough support underneath your back, adjust the prop. You don't want to feel like you're in a back bend, but you do want the sits bones hanging off the front side of the bolster. Beautiful. And so you can rest your eyes here. Feel free to take some deep breaths. And allow the breath to anchor you into your body, into this present moment. Our past impressions do not have to define who we are. We don't have to always identify every emotion that comes up. We can acknowledge it, we can feel it, we can be present with it. It's possible to rise above it. That's what the state of yoga helps us with.
So allow your body to rest and to digest. When we talk about digesting, it's not just about food. It's about our experiences, it's about life, circumstances, the role that we play in it. Let this be medicinal for any insomnia that's occurred this week. If you're really and truly enjoying this version of waterfall, you can stay. But if you want to end with simple legs up the wall with your back flat, just travel the feet down and push your feet into the wall so that you can tuck and lift away from the bolster, remove it to the side, and then you gently roll down to the low back, and then breathe, lift, relax. And this may feel better to your back. This might cultivate a stronger sense of ease. And whichever one you choose, just watch and observe the flow of your breath. Watch and observe the river of thoughts. Come and go, without attaching. Do the same thing with sensation and motion. Let's separate our feet wider than hip. Glide them down the wall. Let your knees flop open. Gently roll over to one side of your body. Take your time coming up one seat. You sit with that support against the wall. Notice your heart rate and breath rate decreasing as you fell into relaxation. Notice how it piped back up just to come to sit. So as you depart here today, remember we all have this pain body. You might be able to notice yours, the person you live with, fires it back up. Notice any patterns with the pain body, because the awareness of it can help us to shift it so it's not in control of us. Bring your hands down to prayer position. The love, the light within me, honors and bows to the love and the light within each of you. So thanks for joining today.